Coming up this week, Perplexity's new browser, Comet, finally goes into orbit. Microsoft and Replit join forces to bring vibe-coded apps to the masses. A new analytics product that counts OpenAI among its biggest fans. And a shock new study shows why middle managers are rapidly disappearing. As always, if you enjoy the briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. So after months of hype, Perplexity's new browser, Comet, has finally launched. It's currently available for Mac users of Perplexity, and like other browsers, Comet is able to reference tabs for tasks like online shopping or content comparison, summarize YouTube videos, and even perform actions on your behalf. As you'd expect from Perplexity, the marketing materials are pretty slick, but some early reviewers have described the experience of Perplexity Comet as a little bit clunky and less responsive than Deer. Given that this is a very early version of the browser, this is to be expected to some extent, and here's a snapshot of how the two browsers compare. In this comparison, I've highlighted the core differences between the browsers at this stage, and as you can see, Deer gets one over on Comet for things like custom skills and commands, which is where you can build shortcuts for quick prompts. But Comet beats Deer on things like taking actions on tabs, so performing actions on your behalf. It also has a voice mode, which Deer doesn't have. And, crucially, Perplexity allows you to change the model that it uses, with Perplexity recently raising another $500 million round, which values the company at over $14 billion. All eyes will be firmly on this browser to see how it performs and whether it might be able to carve out a niche for itself in what is quickly becoming the new battleground for AI companies. Elsewhere this week, Microsoft and Replit have announced a new strategic partnership. This new partnership will enable Microsoft customers to build and deploy production-ready vibe-coded apps using natural language. Now, one of the biggest criticisms of vibe-coded apps to date has been their security vulnerabilities, and Replit and Microsoft will hope that this partnership should rectify some of those concerns. The release says that 500,000 business users are already building apps using Replit, and this includes internal tools to customer-facing applications. Now, this will be seen as a bit of a snub to the likes of Google Cloud and AWS. But on the face of it, this partnership does make sense, as vibe-coded apps continue to take off internally, especially in large companies. Shopify's chief design officer confirmed this week in a post over on X. He said that pretty much all of their new product design reviews now involve a vibe-coded app. He says that teams are using their design system Polaris to create a true view of what they're building, and that they're using Cursor along with MCP clients to ensure that their vibe-coded apps reflect their design systems. And the design process is the latest target for the controversial startup Cluely. Now, if you haven't heard of Cluely before, then this is the company that allows you to cheat in interviews. Recently, they've raised more funding, and now they've launched a new enterprise version of the product that expands its use cases. So now, rather than just solely focusing on cheating in interviews, it has expanded its features to include cheating features for meetings, sales calls, customer support, and product design. So here's an example of it making UX design decisions during the product process. Elsewhere this week, Google Workspace is getting some new Gemini-powered features. Its custom-built AI agents that are known as gems will now appear in the sidebar of products like Google Docs. And some of these gems include things like an OKR writer that will help you construct your OKRs and a C-suite persona that can be used to pressure test content from a leadership's perspective. You can also now use Gemini to perform actions like creating folders and files in Google Drive using natural language. And speaking of AI agents, one area where AI is transforming the product development process is user and market research. And if you're interested in learning more about that, on Substack this week, I explore over 30 different examples of companies that are using AI to transform how product teams are doing user research. This includes things like multi-agent simulation, AI-moderated conversations, and behavioral predictions. So if you're interested in learning more about how AI can be used during the research process, then check that one out. Meanwhile, this week, a new analytics product called Sundial has raised $23 million to build what it calls analytics for the AI era. Now, it counts companies like OpenAI and Character AI amongst its customers, with OpenAI's VP of Analytics saying that it automated complex engineering tasks that would have taken months to build internally. To do all this, it comes with a bunch of pre-packaged templates for analyzing growth, monetization, and engagement. And given just how much of a mess Google Analytics 4 still is, there may indeed be a gap for a product that makes analytics simpler. But of course, it is a notoriously difficult market to crack. Moving on to some other tools you can use this week, and this is a tool I came across this week called LLM Visualization. And this is essentially an interactive space for teaching yourself everything that you need to know about how LLMs work. So it starts with an introduction, and then as you step through each of the different concepts, the visualizations bring to life each of the concepts. And honestly, it's one of the most powerful examples of how visualizations can be used to help you to learn new things. So if you're looking for new ways to learn about LLMs, and this tool is definitely worth checking out. Another tool to take a look at this week is something called Shortcut. Now this describes itself as the first superhuman Excel agent, and it has near feature parity with Excel. The difference is that it can build complex financial models in just one prompt. So here's an example of it building a financial model for a startup based on a single prompt. And the co-founder of this says it scores over 80% in the Excel World Championship cases in just 10 minutes. And that this is 10 times faster than humans. So if you're looking for new ways to speed up the work you do on Excel, then check out Shortcut. And the final tool for this week is something called Runner. So this is a company that has raised over $220 million in funding. And Runner's value proposition is that it lets you automate anything. And it does this by connecting with different applications. So for example, Google Docs, Slack, Google Sheets, LinkedIn, and so on. And you can also decide how involved you want to be in this process. So it gives you this option for human in the loop settings. You can choose from highly involved, moderately involved, or fully automated. Some of the use cases that they suggest that you can use this for include things like finding new jobs based on your resume, and even using in-browser agents to conduct market research in your browser. So in a way, this is almost like N8 or Zapier, but the difference here is that it seems to be doubling down more on the conversational element, along with some parameters for how involved you'd like to be. Now let's take a look at some data and trends this week, and we kick off with a new report which shows the dramatic impact that AI is having on engineers. According to the latest State of Engineering Management report from Jellyfish, AI is saving engineers record amounts of time. 51% of engineering teams' pull requests now use AI, which is up from just 14% last June. And the average time saved per pull request has grown from 8.9 hours to 13.7 hours. This report also shows that GitHub's Copilot remains the AI tool of choice for most engineers, and that crucially, the adoption of AI doesn't appear to be correlated with increases in bugs in production. Historically, that hasn't been the case, with previous studies suggesting that using AI may contribute to tech debt. But according to this study, at least, that doesn't seem to be the case. So if you're interested in learning more about how AI is impacting the engineering process, then check out the State of Engineering Management report from Jellyfish. But while engineers are boosting their productivity, middle managers are rapidly disappearing. New data from the HR platform Gusto shows that people managers now oversee about twice as many workers as just 5 years ago. So this graph shows you the average number of individual contributors per people manager at small businesses. And this survey took 8,500 businesses that are using Gusto with 200 to 500 employees. And you can clearly see that there's a massive spike at the moment in the number of individual contributors per manager. And to be fair, these numbers are for small businesses only. But with the major cuts that we've seen in big tech recently, the linear career path that many people in tech took for granted may no longer exist. And if you are applying for a job, here's a new trend that is also worth keeping an eye on. According to new analysis, more companies than ever are relying on aptitude and personality tests during the recruitment process, as AI leads to candidates applying for jobs en masse. So according to this report, the use of personality tests during the recruitment process is up 69% year on year, as employers try to wade through the AI-generated slop that is often now part and parcel of the job application process. These personality tests will ask questions like, are you happy? Do you sleep well? Do you have many friends? And are you a workaholic? These are just some of the questions that one candidate said that she had to answer when she was applying for a job recently. Now, I can understand why these are a little bit controversial, but with job postings receiving over 1,000 applications for just one job, then I guess employers don't really have much of a choice to differentiate between different candidates. But at least humans are still more creative than AI once they get a job in the workplace. Well, that may not be the case for much longer. So this new study tested a new framework called Agent Ideate that uses patents to come up with new ideas. This involved the use of an LLM on its own, plus an LLM with AI agents and external search capabilities. And human evaluators found that 86% of the time, human evaluators prefer the AI agent ideas. But what happens if these ideas aren't exactly to the benefit of humanity? In a recent talk, the co-founder of the Machine Intelligence Research Institute warned that he believes that there's a 5 to 10% chance that humanity will be wiped out in the next 2 years. In this fascinating but slightly disturbing talk, he explains why the natural endpoint for AI is for it to wipe out humanity unless we intervene and ensure that it is aligned with our own goals. And this week, Anthropic proposed a new transparency framework for just this. The framework targets only the largest AI model developers, using thresholds like annual revenue or R&D spending to avoid burdening smaller companies. But as part of this transparency framework, developers would create and publicly share a secure development framework outlining how they assess and mitigate major risks, including those related to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear harms, as well as model autonomy. So if you're interested in learning more about how Anthropic thinks we should approach the topic of AI safety, then that transparency framework paper is worth a read. But let's end on a positive note, and if you're looking for some summer reading that paints a positive outlook on what the future of an aligned AI might look like for humanity, then this book was recently recommended to me, and it's called Deep Utopia. It's written by Nick Bostrom, who is most famous for the simulation hypothesis. And in this book, he envisions a world where AI eliminates resource competition and human labor becomes unnecessary. All material needs are met and technology removes our daily struggles, allowing us to pursue fulfilling activities without any economic constraints. So if you want a more positive outlook on the future of AI and humanity, then check out that book. And on that note, I'll leave it there for this week. Thanks very much for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with another briefing.